Creative Magic Club.
What's up? This is Sarah Mack and welcome to Creative Magic Club. Together, we'll discover inspirational stories of creative entrepreneurs living out their dreams, doing the work they are most passionate about, and building wealth in magical and fun ways. While building a six-figure income as a writer and coach, helping other women to launch their dream businesses, I've connected with so many incredible people and seen it proven again and again that you can thrive financially doing whatever it is you are passionate about. I'm here to share life-changing strategies for mindset, making money, and reaching more people with your work in a business and life filled with creativity, freedom, and fun. Hi everyone, welcome to the show. I'm super excited to introduce our guest this week, who is Taylor Eaton. She's a money mindset and human design expert who helps entrepreneurs and individuals to create financial abundance with ease. And she specializes in helping people discover their unique formula for making money. Hi Taylor, thank you so much for joining us.
Hi, thank you so much for having me here. I'm so excited to get to chat with you today.
Yeah, so I'm super excited to talk about human design. I discovered it recently through Taylor, and it's been really eye-opening because I love how it kind of gives you an insight on how you work and how you don't work as an individual. And it's just really empowering to have, these types of reflection points as you're, trying to navigate a way to, like you say, do things more easily, make money more easily, enjoy your business because it just feels easier. So, but it's something that it's kind of a weird, like complex, I know you call it, it's not like a science, but so I'm really curious, like how you ended up being a expert in human design and money mindset.
Yeah, it's been such a weird and kind of meandering journey to get to this point for me. I have been doing some form of mindset work for years and years and years, and without even really knowing what it was called for a long time. And then when I started a business, initially I was like, well, maybe I'll be a virtual assistant because I was looking for a way out of my office job. And then I started helping coaches with, being a VA for coaches. And then I was like, oh, they're really making an impact. I want to see what they're doing. And so I started being kind of a general lifestyle coach, that sort of thing. And then from there, it very quickly turned into being a mindset coach. And then it was, like a money mindset coach, because my money mindset was the thing I'd worked on the most, even before I started my business. And then from there, it became, much more of like, okay, now that I've figured out the business side of things, we're going to do business and money mindset coaching. And then the funny thing about human design was the way that it entered my life was actually the very start of my coaching business. And it took me almost 2 years, 1.5 to 2 years to actually embrace it and bring it into my business. Because it was something that different people kept talking about. It's something that's been gaining more and more popularity in the last few years here. And it's a relatively new tool, new system, new spiritual modality, whatever you want to call it. And it came about in the 80s, and it's been gaining steam and momentum since. It's kind of like really exploding now, especially in the spiritual communities and the coaching spaces. And really what drew me to it was people kept giving it to me. I remember the first time I heard it was a coach was like, do you know your human design? I was like, what is that? And she showed me this weird chart, and I was like, I have no idea what this is. And she was like, oh yeah, you're a projector, and that means this thing. And I was like, what is that? And I kept brushing it off. And then I had a coach I was working with on an ongoing basis, and she started getting into it and telling me about it. And it just kept being kind of shoved in my face. And it was something I kind of ignored a little bit, especially because I've always been someone, even though I do have the spiritual side to me, I'm very logic minded, and I was raised very much like, where are the facts? What's the science behind it? All that sort of stuff. And so for me to kind of adopt this whole system and kind of, which kind of is like a guidebook for how to live your life, was really outside of my comfort zone. But what kept coming up to me was people kept saying, oh, you're a projector. You're not really meant to be working all day. And that was the one thing that stuck with me, because I was working a 9 to 5. I was running my business on the side. I was exhausted. I was burned out. I was getting migraines every other weekend, like just incapacitated in bed. And it was just, I didn't understand why I couldn't keep up with the rest of the world. And human design kept being that thing that was like, no, look at your design. You're not supposed to work as hard as most of the other people in the world. And this to me was the thing that was kind of the gateway. That's what got my attention. And the more that I started realizing that I didn't have quite as much energy as like my husband did, who's a generator, or, like all the coaches I was working with who were generators and manifesting generators, I was like, why can't I keep up with you guys in terms of how many hours of work I can put into a day? And I used to think there was something so wrong with me and that I wasn't trying hard enough or I was lazy. And what happened was when I actually started listening to these people and I actually started diving into human design, it gave me this huge permission slip. Because as a projector, if you don't know, human design doesn't really matter too much, but my design type, basically it says, I'm only really supposed to be doing maybe 3, maybe 4 hours of work a day. And at first, to me, this is my environment is like, okay, you're not going to make a lot of money only working 4 hours a day. But then I started realizing that it was such a relief to think, well, what if this is true? And so that was kind of the thing that started all. It was just that question of what if this is true? And from there, I started diving into human design. It started giving me all this permission to start running my business the way I wanted to and not the way that was being taught by the majority of coaches. And the more I embraced it, the more I started seeing results. The more I started seeing my income go up. The more I started seeing, my income jump. I had this amazing jump at one point from 2K months to 20K months almost overnight. And then, found a way to kind of start maintaining that as it was ping-ponging up and down. And it all was done through human design with using the guidance that I was finding through human design. So I kind of became a believer over time. But like you said, I don't necessarily call it a science. A lot of people do say it's scientifically backed. I disagree. It's a spiritual tool. It's a tool, right? It's a system. It's a tool, and it gives you permission to be all of you. So that's how I ended up kind of bringing it into my business and diving into that rabbit hole.
That's awesome. And I saw a training that you did in Nicole Santa's Wild Women Collective, specifically around self-care and human design. And this is something I've heard you talk a lot about, which is, obviously the way that we take care of ourselves and the way that we work and the way we relate to our schedule and our activities obviously really varies a lot depending on all of our different types as human beings. And I love the way that particularly you kind of address this as a strategy in business. So I would love for you to talk a little bit about that and, how that has been really pivotal for you and obviously in the work that you do with your clients as well.
Yeah, it's interesting because Nicole was one of the first people to actually ask me to talk about self-care and human design so directly. And at first I thought that's not my area of expertise. I do money, I do business and human design, right? And then I started thinking, I'm like, no, I really teach this all the time and I just haven't called it this, right? But you're right. With what I teach a lot of my clients is I look at their design and I try to normalize relaxation and self-care based on their design for them. And we don't look at it as this is something that you get to do once you've checked off everything on your to-do list, but instead we look at it as this is part of your business, just as important as all your sales pages and all your marketing strategies. You also need to be incorporating relaxation and self-care, things that replenish you. And the reason that I teach this from a human design perspective is that we all have different kind of levels of energy. Like I was talking about before, we all, based on our specific designs, have different, kind of different ways that we best rejuvenate ourselves and the way that we approach self-care. And so just like how I teach that there's no one size fits all solution for business, there's no one size fits all solution for human design either. But when you start honoring both those kind of parts of you that you need to take action in a certain way based on your design, and you also need to relax in a certain way based on your human design, and when you actually honor both those things, that's when you really come into living your design. That's when you come into alignment with how you're uniquely wired. And that's when everything comes together. And I always tell people, I say, you can't afford not to relax. Whether that's taking a bubble bath, that's how it looks a lot of time for me, is just being in a bubble bath, no work, not reading, just relaxing. Or if that's, like going for a run, if that's what it is, relaxing or, replenishing for you, it doesn't so much matter. But what matters is that if you're not doing those things, you can't keep running on all cylinders, regardless of your design. And so that's kind of why I teach it. And honestly, those times when you're relaxed are when you get those hits of inspiration that leads to the $1 million idea for your business. Or those are the times when you can drop the worry and the stress and the hustle. That's when you kind of get recharged. And then when you do show up, you're so much more magnetic to your audience. And so this is how I kind of connect those dots for people, because a lot of people think self-care, relaxation is something that I earn, right? It's something I get when I'm done with the to-do list. But the thing is, being an entrepreneur, your to-do list is never done. There's always more you could do. And so you have to really embrace how you're designed to actually unplug, unwind, recharge, right?
Yes, this is such a great conversation. And I think it's really important on so many levels. Number one, particularly as entrepreneurs, because it really goes against that like hustle, like push narrative that's out there that just doesn't work for a lot of people, especially when you're the face of your company, like you are a personal brand. Because if you're like in a state and you're trying to get out and get people excited about your work and you're not really excited about it because you don't have any energy left, you're not going to sell. You're not going to be magnetic, like you say. And also it just like proves that you don't have to sacrifice. We don't have to sacrifice our health. We live in a culture that like encourages us to sacrifice the health and well-being of our physical bodies and our emotional health. And all of those things have been, shoved away in, most working environments. And so it's really amazing to take a stand for that. And it's incredible how much fear there is involved around like, oh, you mean if I don't like hustle, then it'll still work out, and we really have to train ourselves to step back. And because why did we start a business in the first place, right? It's so that we have that freedom, so we don't have to make the sacrifices we don't feel comfortable making. And particularly as women who we're just conditioned to like give and feel like it's never enough and, stay busy and all of these just unsupportive behavior traits. So it really is a retraining process. And it's so connected to our money, because if you're incapable of giving to yourself, you're incapable of receiving. So and I've seen this for myself in my own business. I've had months where I have been working really hard and like ticking all the boxes and doing the right things and no results. And it's always the months where I'm having the most fun and like working the least and, showing up from that magnetic and that more creative energy and feeling more connected to trusting myself and listening to my intuition and taking action instead of obsessing and trying to micromanage everything. That's when the magic results come through and I like surpass my income goals. And so it is a money mindset strategy.
It is. And the one of the key words you just said there was trust, right? Because, when you're talking about it's hard. We do have that fear, right? It's so hardwired into us because that's what the mentality of the society we live in is. You have to make the money happen. You have to do the things. You have to be working to make the money come to you. But at the end of the day, we have to admit we actually don't have control over whether money comes to us or not. We can stack the deck in our favor. We can have strategies. We can be visible. We can reach out to people. We can do these different things. But then the day, you can't force someone to purchase from you as an entrepreneur. You can't force it to happen. And yet we like to think that we do on some level, right? That we have this control and that we can actually make people purchase or we can make the money come to us. But like you said, those months when you're like hustling and checking the box and you're like, I'm going to hit my income goal. And then when it doesn't come through, it's because like you said, you're not in the receiving mode. You're also just, you're trying to hold on to this illusion of control. And that's kind of the beautiful thing about human design is it takes you from placing your trust in that illusion and instead asks you to place your trust in yourself and in your, like you said, your intuition, or what I say in human design is it's your authority, right? The authority is kind of your compass for this is what feels right to me, or this is what feels exciting to me, or this is what makes sense to me. And there's different authorities in human design, but those authorities are what help us kind of navigate our way of saying like, this is the right next step for me. And this is the beautiful thing about human design is we all have different unique skills and talents and traits. And so if you're trying to copy what someone else is doing, where maybe hustling does work for them because they are maybe a generator or a manifesting generator who can just go all day. And so you see them online at all hours, maybe that works for them. But for you, if you're like me, a projector, or maybe even a manifestor or a reflector, doing that isn't going to get you the same results because you have totally different unique skill sets. So the way that you're going to get to the money, the way that you're going to get to the clients and the success in your business is going to look entirely different from someone else. And the way that you find that is by learning to trust yourself, by learning to trust your inner guidance, which is your authority in human design. And so that's, and again, human design is just a tool. If you found a different way to tap into your intuition and it's outside of human design and that works for you, do it, right? Like, I don't care. This is just one of many tools. But the really cool thing about human design is it gives you this really specific system and kind of guidance to follow. And that's why I've loved it, to foster that trust with myself, right? And I think that's the big thing when we ask ourselves and other entrepreneurs to try to relax when it's scary to relax, because that's not what we've been taught to do to make money, then there's this element of trust we have to start cultivating within ourselves, right?
Right. Like it helps to retrain us from giving our power away to money and allowing it to be something that controls our emotions. And I just think it's so empowering, this conversation, that everybody is different. Everybody's unique. Everyone's going to get from A to Z in a completely different way. And particularly, in entrepreneurship, where I think everybody's had that experience of being told a strategy by a coach and then it just not feeling right, or having a ton of resistance around it, and then, blaming themselves and feeling like there's something wrong with them because it didn't work. And it really is like a permission slip to just do it your way and make up your own rules based on how it feels.
Exactly. That's exactly it. And that's what I always tell people. Human design is this permission slip to be all of you. That's all that it really needs to be used for, is just to help you know who you are better and to know how to trust yourself better.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I love it. I love it. Thank you so much for sharing this conversation with us today. And tell us more about your work, like people who want to learn more about what human design is, or, you know, what the kind of work that you do. What do you have?
So what I typically do is I tend to work mostly with entrepreneurs, though I do work with some individuals who just want to change their relationship with money. But typically the work that I do, and, you know, there's all different sorts of ways I do this work and levels of support, but what I'm always typically doing is sharing insights into your design with you, and then kind of translating that into actual actionable items that you can take with you and you can implement into your life. Because I feel like the tool is only as good as the person holding it, right? So it's really about, I try to make human design really understandable and understand how you can look at anything either as something that's a limitation in your human design or as something that's a superpower. And so that's always what my approaches to human design is always trying to do that. So I do, you know, I offer private human design readings for entrepreneurs or just for individuals. I offer, you know, group programs, masterminds, all those sorts of things. But really the whole goal of all of it is to try to encourage you to be all of you and to trust yourself and to see how unique and insanely valuable you are and your unique you-ness, because that's the really beauty of the human design system.
Amazing. I love it so much. And where can people find you?
You can find me at tayloreatoncoaching.com. I have tons of freebies and offers. You can book readings with me there. I'm also on Facebook at facebook.com/group/Taylor Eaton Coaching. That's my Wealth by Design Facebook group where I spend the most time. I'm also on Instagram at Taylor Eaton Coaching. So that's where you can find me.
Amazing. Thank you so much, Taylor.
Yeah. You are so welcome. Thank you for having me.
Thanks everyone for watching. Bye.
For more inspirational content, head over to my website withsarahmac.com and please support the show by liking, commenting, and subscribing.